In a world full of misery, rage, and insomnia, there's a place you can go to just unwind. All you have to do is take a long walk into the mountains, and just past the black house, the secret garden, you'll find a small cabin. Inside that cabin, you'll find the Hole in the Wall Book Club. So now that the dream catcher's hung and the fire started, we invite you to pull up a chair and join the Losers Club as we explore the world of slurping on people's necks and serious men. Hello and welcome to Hole in the Wall Book Club. I am Anthony.
I'm Alex.
And we're here talking about, what chapters are they? 5 through 7?
Yeah.
Yeah. Salem's Lot. So the end of part 1.
Yeah.
We're going to part 2. I'm gonna jump right to the end there. Did you see the title of part 2?
No.
Because I'm excited about that.
I did, but I don't remember it.
It's, I think it's called like the Prince of Ice Cream, the Emperor of Ice Cream. So.
Oh, that's Stephen King. I see.
Yep. We're gonna get some. I think we're gonna get some. We'll get into it. Cool. Chapter 5 was Ben 2. Yeah. I don't like that. I don't like that chaptering system at all. But it starts with Ben at dinner with the Nortons again, and that was a weirdly written scene for me, because there was a bit where like you're hearing Ben's thoughts and he says something along the lines of, and nothing's changed. Dad still likes me, Mom still doesn't like me. I'm like, then why are we having this scene? But whatever.
Oh yeah, I can see what you're saying.
It's basically like them finishing up
dinner,
and then the dad, I can't remember his name, I have it over there, Bill, is like, hey, come let me kick your ass in badminton again. I love kicking the ass of serious men. And this has got me, because Ben's like, nah, I can't. I have to write. I owe myself these pages, and, I'm a serious man. Hey, Sue, do you want to go have a soda with me? It was just like, I got plans, sorry. Sue, I know I just told your dad I have plans. He is in the room staring at me. You want to go have a soda? I don't actually have plans.
To then even further lead into it not even being soda they're getting.
Right. Because she's like, yep, cool, gonna get my coat. And like, I think it's like halfway down the drive. Oh, there is a little tiff between her and her mom, where her mom's like, are you sure? You sure you're gonna go get a soda? Because like, that kid just disappeared. Like, what do you get? What if you get, stabbed by a sex offender? God, so much talk of sex offender in here. Like, this is where Stevie King was really hit his prime. Like, I made a joke earlier that if we started we should start a spin-off podcast to this, and like in-universe interview with Stephen King characters called How I Got My Shining. And this is where we're starting with it. Like, we got a lot of kids to interview. We'll immediately get kicked off of iTunes and probably just out of civilized society in general. So,
How I Got the Shining.
Look forward to that. Maybe we'll launch a Patreon if we get enough that we can live while ostracized from society. We'll launch the show. Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I was 7 and.
So, basically, she's like, Mom, I'm an adult. Shut up. I'm going. And then heads down, halfway down the driveway, she's like, I don't want to get a soda. Let's go hang out in the park where they make out after the movies. Like, let's go to make out park.
Wink, nudge, nudge.
Yep.
Can he see the Marston house from the park, right?
Yes. That is very explicit. And even if it wasn't explicit, the fact that he gets an erection proves that he's looking at the Marston house. Because in fairness, this is the first time I've written down anything about a sex scene in my list of scenes that happened that isn't labeled someone and someone have weird sex. The sex itself is normal, other than being in a park.
A three-way with a house, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Three-way with the house.
Yeah.
So
always on his mind.
I try to be King positive, but I don't know.
I think somewhere in the middle, he accidentally shouts Marston House instead of her name.
Right,
yeah.
Right. At the moment of completion. That's how he got his shining. Okay. No, but basically they go to the park, they lay out a blanket, and she's like, hey, what's in your book? What's your book about? And this kind of answered a couple questions we had talked about earlier, like whether he was being dodgy because he didn't want to tell her or didn't want to talk about the book. Because he points out that his wife? That's the one who died.
Wife and kid.
Okay.
I think he had a kid, right?
Yeah, but I'm not sure on that.
I thought it was a wife and kid.
Maybe. Yeah, I think you're right. That's how he got his shag. Now, but he points out that like on his first 2 books, he refused to tell his wife anything. It's just like he always wrote in isolation. But in the same breath, he's being like, but I'll tell you. I just don't know how to put it into words.
Oh, and later I'll tell the English teacher.
Right, right. Like, maybe he just didn't like his wife. Like, he even has this moment like, man, my dead wife, I loved her, but Sue's different. I think she's different because she's here and getting naked. I don't know. She's it was weird because she's like obsessed with like this whole like, I want to know what the book's about. I need to know why he keeps staring at the Marston house.
I mean, that's what he's really not telling anyone, why he keeps staring at it.
And admitting like primal groans. Yeah. Like Ava's going to kick him out of the boarding house because he just... I'm not going to get that gross.
I mean, he did put the...
He's shining them walls.
He does have the room that literally looks at it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
But he's like, okay, I'll tell you what my book's about. Let me think about how to put it into words. And she's like, well, what if I kiss you while you're thinking? Will that help? And he's just like, no, I won't be able to think like that. And she's like, okay, well, fuck me. But make it good. I love that line. Just like, hey, have sex with me. Okay. Make it good. Put some pressure on right quick.
Get that house off his mind.
It did not that. No, I mean, the book does not say it, but it's in the subtext.
When he looked at her eyes, he saw the windows. It was
reflect. Yeah. Now, at the moment of climax, just like the flash of old man Marston. I don't know. I just pictured him in like Scooby-Doo cartoon style. Oh, who are you really? Oh, the darkness within man. You were the bad guy all along. But yeah, they bang in the park. And then there's this real quick scene. There's 2 real quick scenes where it's like them walking up the driveway to her mom's. And she's just like, oh no, this was a bit longer. It's them walking home. I'm gonna cut all this out. Let's start over. Hello, welcome back. No, but he tells her what the book's about.
Yeah. How does he describe it to her? Because he gets a little more detailed when he describes it to the teacher.
Yeah. When he's describing it to her, he's basically describing it as like he actually kind of doesn't tell her what the book's about. He tells her about her research.
Yeah,
his research. Because he starts talking about...
he looked up stuff about missing kids.
Right.
Found that someone gone missing, but they appeared to actually be natural, which I think he brings up with the teacher.
Right. But he talked to like Mr. Marston. I don't remember his name. The late Mr. Marston. I think his sister. And like got confirmation that he worked for the mob and was, I think, a hired killer. He was something with the mob, and like there was a point at which like
his whole businessy thing was just a scam, and
he goes on about that this woman's trustworthy because she is barely in tune with reality. It's heavily implied she had like heavy Alzheimer's, and he's like, she wouldn't lie about this because it's all she's remembering. She doesn't even know who I am. She's not trying to hide anything. And this is when there's a bit he mentions about ESP, and I'm not sure if he's like if Ben would be considered a kook a little bit in the Stephen King universe, or if the Stephen King universe does actually recognize ESP as much as he says it does.
What is the date of this versus Carrie?
On like on in narrative
in universe, yeah.
Ooh, we get a thing right near the beginning. I think it's after. It should be.
I would assume it's
because I think this is 1975. So yeah. So. Do we have the resounding effects?
Well, it's the amount of people actually in town who are quick to actually just go, "Oh yeah, that place is evil." And that's the fathers pondering at one point.
Yeah, we meet the priest.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So now everyone's just sort of collectively acknowledging there's some evil at this house. Weird timing with the purchase.
But how the ESP comes up is Marston's sister. Pretty sure.
I think so.
Or was it Marston's sister or was it his wife's sister? There was, because I think like she claims that at the moment of her death, I believe a punch bowl like filled with blood, and she was miles and miles away.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
And that's where
yeah.
And Sue goes on this thing about like, you believe in ESP? And he's like, I mean, with all the evidence, you'd be a fool to not to. Like, at least give it some credence. And then he talks about like the embodiment of evil and basically reveals his whole Marston House boner.
Yeah, basically.
He's tells her, I wanted to move in, rent it for a while, and face my demons and write a book about it. And it's throwing me off that someone else is there, and then a kid's gone missing. So,
King.
Dun dun dun.
Essentially King.
Yeah.
Essentially King.
There's a lot of narrative. Like, I'm just gonna say it. There's a lot of jerking off to his own narrative a little bit later.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, love you, Stevie Kings. I'm calling that out. And then we get them like going up the driveway, and the mom just being like, I wish that Ben Mears would go away. He's not a serious man. Floyd Tibbet's my serious man. It's just her like staring at them and being angry.
Isn't she make something? Doesn't it seem to be inferred that it's like his outsider status specifically that bothers her?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, and
he's gonna swoop her way out of
She called down
that.
to the soda jerk.
Oh yeah, that's how she
said
was sure. Yeah,
they weren't there. He's like, "What'd you do? What'd you do?" There's one more thing. I got to jump back way to the beginning of the dinner. There is a bit where Ben's like, I mean, her dad's starting to like me, but really, can you ever like a man that's gonna bang your daughter? Like, I'm not making this up. He's like, I think the exact line is like, but I mean, there's always the gulf of trying to like connect with a man whose potential deflowering of your child dangles between his legs. And then there was a point about, and even if they get married, that possibility then turns into a definite. And can you really like a man who's banging your daughter? It's like, there's a lot to unpack here.
yeah.
I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to put it out for better, more dedicated people than I to unpack that. And then from there, we like from Sue's mom, we jump back to Ben and Sue for a real quick scene where she's like, hey, do you lock your room? Has anyone else heard about this book? Because they're going to think you're crazy. And a couple I think last episode, we got the whole bit where Sue was like, I want to tell him I love him, but I'm not gonna while he's looking at that Marston house. He must have glanced away for like a split second because she's like, I don't think you're crazy though, because I love you. Bye. So he must have finally looked away from the Marston house.
Yeah, I guess so. Because that's a thing also later. Matt's house does not see Marston house.
Right.
It locks him, it frees him from the...
Yeah. A little bit more in this chapter. We got Ben meeting...
The reaction to... the mom reaction, not just that, but that she called in to know. Because I don't think we just said that. I think we just said that off.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. When she's waiting for them, she called the soda jerk place, knows they didn't go, and wants him to vamoose.
Yeah,
like,
just staring daggers
some
at him.
city foreign boy ruining everything.
She's just hanging out the window like, did you just give my daughter the shining in the park? Did you just shine her up? And then her dad's just sitting in the living room. I doubt it. He's a serious man. Serious man can't maintain erection. I don't know. I don't know why he's not worried about them dangly bits. Oh, God. This whole thing was wild. But from there, Ben is like, I'm too jazzed up to write. I'm not going to be a serious man tonight. I'm going to the bar. And he runs into my best friend, Weasel.
Like you have a best friend every time so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Though I actually think we know who the Tommy of this story is. And sadly, he's fated for death. We'll get to him in the next chapter, but
I think, yeah.
Yep. I think he's the Tommy.
I could see that.
We'll get to that in a sec. I'm hiding things from our viewers. Fucking who cares about spoilers? The Gravedigger. I think he's the Tommy of this book.
I can see that.
But yeah, we get Ben at the bar. He buys some beer for Weasel. And the woman serving the beer is just a jerk.
That's like keep making a point of how big her arms are.
Yeah.
Because she's done this for so long.
Yeah, like he puts down $1 for the pitcher, and she's just like, I think it was like $1.60 or no, $1.40, and like snaps at him, and just like, dude, he's brand new. You just be nice. I think Weasel was pissing her off.
That's very possible.
I guess he's getting Weasel more drunk. It's kind of a dick. So they drink for a bit, and then Weasel introduces Ben to Matt.
Yep. Who's
the school teacher.
Who likes rock.
Yeah. I think he's who Stephen King wants to grow up to be at this point.
I think it's he's the who am I looking for?
You gotta get me in the ballpark, buddy.
What's the clown movie Doctor You Can't Stand? What's that actor?
Patch Adams.
What's that actor?
Oh, Robin Williams.
Yeah. So there we
Wow,
go.
just blanked.
Robin
Rest in
Williams.
peace.
Yeah, right. Robin Williams to his Matt Damon.
Yep.
That's
Okay.
what you're actually getting.
I like it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear what that English teacher is representing.
That would have been a
he's-
better cast to Face Off. I'm just saying.
He's the constant. I love teaching English. You know, there's some bright people who absorb it. It's straight up that.
I like Matt.
Yeah, he's not bad. No,
I like him.
he's probably one of the most normal people in a book so far.
Yeah. And Matt and Ben talk for a bit. Matt's read his book, and you can tell Matt's a bit of a serious man here because he's straight up. When Ben's like, well, what did you think of it? He's like, I liked it better than the critics did. The critics hated it. I just want to remind you, the critics hated your book. I need to point out the critics hated your book. And then, okay, I was complaining a bit off about how Ben immediately starts talking about his book as soon as his girlfriend is like, hey, don't talk about your book. But I did totally forget that Ben is just, I need some names that are just slightly like different sizes.
yeah.
Sue, Ben, Matt, like, just 3-letter names the whole way around, 3 or 4 letters. Matt's basically like, hey, what's your book about? And he heavily implies like, I know it's about this place. And it comes out like he talked to the librarian. The librarian's been like, yeah, he's checking out all this shit about Marston House. I bet he's writing a book about the Marston House.
Yeah, it just kind of catches him that he's doing that, so then he's sort of willing to start saying things. And then we get that weird, Matt asked the perfect question. So there's like this weird back and forth where Matt will say something, either a question
They're like
or
kindred spirits.
or prodding
Like
or
just a
something like
tad.
that. And he's talking about, or he gets caught with that information and sort of starts to talk about it. But then every time Matt replies or asks a question or probes a thing, Ben has these weird like, how did you know to ask that right question? How did you phrase that the same way I would have phrased that?
Yeah, there was a couple times where he's like, that is exactly the phrasing in my mind.
Yeah.
He's peering into me as I peer into the Marston House. His serious man nature calls to my own. Like, this is drift compatibility. Stephen King invented it way back.
Well,
Stephen
I mean,
King, co-writer
it's also
of Pacific Rim.
it's also the cliche friendship in the English teacher and the writer kind of thing.
Right. And yeah, there's a bunch of talk back and forth. I don't remember what order this happens, but at some point
There isn't much in that at all other than this developing friendship, essentially.
Right.
They kind of pal up, and then you hear that Weasel's...
But somewhere in there, Matt's like, hey, would you come talk to my creative writing class? So at some point,
Yeah, that's true.
Ben
yeah.
gets invited to that during
Yeah.
this conversation.
And then Weasel passes out in the bathroom. Fairly descriptive scene about how they have to go in and get him under his arms, and the guy's like a couple inches away from pissing right on him.
Yeah, there's like a guy in a
urinal.
military uniform that's his only description is he's a dude in a military uniform pissing 2 inches from Weasel's face.
Yeah.
Like-
So they have to get up under his arm. Like, this is a weirdly detailed... This is another one of those climbing through the rafters scenes. They could have just been like, they yanked him up out of the bathroom. No, it's, I got my arm under him. Hey, can you step to the side? I know you're in the middle of... And just this very detailed... They get him up and they drag him out of the bar.
The Janico branded toilet or like urinal cake.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
just
it
making
was-
that up, but yeah. No, it was a bit. And then basically Ben drives Weasel home.
Yep.
And we get Ben going a little bit crazy on the roads where he's like, these roads are haunted. Where did that thought come from? Whoa, I better look at the Marston House to calm down. And yeah, it's just a weird drive home where he's just, that like, these roads are haunted. He's big on this interjection thought thing. Like, we saw a lot of that in Carrie.
It's a very weird... You're getting this weird effect of the character you're viewing also having this experience that you're supposed to pick up on, but the experience of the character in the narrative that kind of doesn't make any sense. Like, all we know is he saw Marsden hanging from when he barged in and whipped open that door, and that's kind of it.
Right.
But what's being implied here passively is as if the tie is so much deeper than he snuck in once.
Like,
But you're kind of like, there's no evidence to think that, but he keeps doing weird crap.
We do get a bit more about his research when he's talking to Matt, which is probably worth going over. It's basically like, sex perverts, sex crimes against kids. Oh, we get the description of what his book is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
But that's also where he goes into stating that when he finds in the data he looked up in the library, found that all the deaths were basically normal. The 3 missing kids.
Right.
Between the initial and then between now. So he even makes that comment about how maybe, the kid will return or something.
Yeah, it's but I do want to talk before he picked up Weasel.
Yeah.
They talk about what his book is, and it is. Okay, first off, we have to start out with him being like, "I need to let you know, I'm just writing it for the money. I know this is gonna be a bestseller." Not quite, but he's like, "I'm writing a book that's gonna sell."
Are we just jumping to this?
Isn't this in the bar?
No.
Or is this?
This is the later
last chapter.
Yeah, he does. He
totally
doesn't.
mixing
Yeah,
up the
he
two
does not.
Batman
He actually doesn't say
conversations.
that much about the book. He kind of. It's a back
This
and
is
flow,
why
ebb
you
and
weren't
flow.
yes-anding me. I was wrong. Okay, yeah. So
Because it's the drive.
it would be a lot easier if listeners, you would just pretend like I didn't say any of this instead of me editing. Yeah. I thought that whole conversation happened in the bar.
Oh no,
Okay.
it's pretty light back and forth, more bonding than it is.
Right, because it's after he talks.
Yeah,
to
because
the
he
kids.
drives, takes Weasel in, and then there's that weird moment of like, what's her name?
Ava Miller.
Yeah, Ava's like, I'll disrobe him and put him in bed. That's what I've done before. And Ben's like, okay.
You didn't need to make this weird.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
So then,
That was a weird scene.
yeah, then Ben basically goes up to his room, and I think it says he can't sleep, or he has something about him sleeping.
Marston House.
Yeah.
Yep. And then that's the end of our chapter there. We get to our chapter 6, The Lot 2. And I know you loved this opening subsection. I know you loved it. Where we talk about fall.
Yeah.
Uh,
We do another weird, like, I'm going to pretend I'm Tolkien for 10 seconds. Let me write a chapter that's just supposed to set the environment, and then that environment mean nothing in 10 seconds.
Yep. It's basically...
Like, oh, wow, the fall. Like, I guess there's some correlation in fall and death and creepiness. It's certainly the right season for it.
Maybe part 3 is winter, and this is all just like an elaborate time travel winter is coming joke.
Oh, maybe like 180 days of night instead of...
Perfect. Yeah, it was just a really poetically intense scene about how seasons change.
Yeah.
Yep. It's pretty.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just like the lines. It's standalone interesting. What are you doing in the story with it? What was the point of that?
And from there, we jump to a description of Danny's funeral, because Danny has died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we knew Danny died.
Yeah, but now they're holding it, yeah.
And we get a huge list of people who are here. It's basically everyone. Like all the people. All
the town came.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then all the reasons why they're all here.
And flares of like, oh, she dresses rather morbid to these. He's wearing tennis shoes. There's the standard. We're charactering them up as they all come in.
Yep. Like Mabel's there because she's the gossip. Like it's their personalities.
Yeah.
I did like the pointing out that the bus driver goes because that's just what you do. Like you go to funerals. That dickhole bus driver. And then we get a scene with I think it's our first time really seeing Father Callahan in a scene. Because he's talking to Mike. Yeah. The Tommy stand-in. Our gravedigger guy. We got a scene with him earlier. He's the one who found the dog, and I don't know what happens in that scene.
The only I don't remember too much significance other than he kind of takes it upon himself to just manage it. Like Father it describes him, because the main big thing that occurs here is essentially the dad freaking out.
Right.
He jumps in, give me my son back, you're not dead, beating on the casket. I mean, he literally leaps into the hole.
Yeah.
And then the mother starts bawling. And this is a whole episode. I don't remember how he gets out. I think they pull him out. Doesn't it say like a couple of guys have to get over there to get him out or something?
I don't think they...
It might even just not say.
I don't think he's out.
But what does happen is the father just tries to like continue the process over top of him. While there's wailing, while he's down there beating, you just see him go, okay, and so the father, and he just sort of tries to talk over him.
Because in that scene... Before the full funeral, like the quick talk there, I think the only important things is like the father being like, I'm going to try to keep it 10 minutes to limit suffering because this sucks.
Yeah.
And Royal who was one of the people who helped moved in the. We don't know this for sure. But it was the vampire.
Yeah.
They helped move the vampire crate in. He was supposed to be helping bury the kid, and he's not.
Yeah.
So like he's not there yet.
Yeah.
Funeral. Weirdly enough, this was the longest of the 3 chapters. Based on Audible, is like half hour, hour and a half hour, and this so little happened here.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, it was a very wordy chapter. Yeah,
we jump to, we jump to after the funeral. Mike is like, "Where the hell is Royal? We got to bury this thing," and we get this description of like him being real uneasy and this feeling of someone watching him. He starts staring at the Marston house. Unlike Ben, he does not get an erection. Yeah. He gets uneasy, and he's like, "Where the hell's Royal?" And there's a bit in this, so like he starts getting freaked out. He notices that when he steps away from the grave and like he can't see the bottom of the grave anymore, he doesn't feel like he's being watched. And then he gets it in his head that the kid's eyes are open in the coffin. Yeah. And I actually really enjoyed the writing here, because like he's working through the logic of like, no, like, yeah, the mortician didn't put enough gum in his eyes. That's why it's popping open. That's why I feel like I'm being watched. I just have to fix that. You can see the mind control, delusional logic, and I think it's really well done.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Because it has that internal consistency logic. Yeah. And there's a weird bit here, because he ends up freaking out. Long story short, he jumps down the hole, opens up the casket, and the kid's eyes are open, and then, yeah. But he notices there's a lock on the coffin. I have no idea who could have put that lock on there. Like, we talked about this a little bit. I'm not gonna pretend like
it's hard.
But like,
it could be King just put that there. It could be that someone snuck it there. It could be that's by default because this town's superstitious or something weird. It's just kind of a thing right now.
But like Mike notices there's a lock, and there's a brief moment where he's like, "Why is there a lock? Yeah, who cares? Smash it open with the shovel." But like anyone at this point that would be thinking vampire either wouldn't want a lock on the box or wouldn't have been able to, in my opinion. I don't know. Well, I'm curious if it's going to come up.
Yeah, unless something was subtly said that I just don't remember either as well.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out there's a lock in the box. He broke it open. And I think it just ends with like some poetic thing about eyes and dark suit.
Yeah.
And then where do we go from there? That was, we jump over to Mark, the smart kid.
This
is a weird scene.
He's basically sitting up in the attic, or like his bed. Is it just straight to his bedroom?
I don't know. It was some like room.
Wherever he's in building his horror toys. It was describing him. I forget which one he was working on. He has a
Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, I think it might have been that. Wow. The vent runs right to. I think many people are familiar with this in a venting system throughout the house. It lets him hear directly what his parents are saying, I think in the living room or wherever they were.
Yeah.
And it's basically a weird thing where it's the parents going through their own thought process of what they think about their son, and then the son's very passive reaction of either smiling internally, questioning internally, and it ranges from like, he seems awfully cold and handling this well. Is he a sociopath? No, I think he just knows how to handle it reasonably. Our son's a very mature son. And it just becomes this weird yo-yo. Is he weird or is he just very mature? Is essentially what they keep going back and forth between.
And we get a little bit of his like thinking on this, because it's not like, wait, my parents think I'm a sociopath? What the fuck? It's like, my parents think I'm a sociopath? Yeah, that's probably because I'm very cold and calculating and don't really, I feel emotion. I just don't like expressing it. Like, it was like, you were very calm and collected in your interpretation of it. Like, okay, who the fuck are you going to end up being?
Yeah. Ultimately, the trajectory of it is that it ends positively. It's basically the last few things they say about, it's our child's bright, he's good, ends with him just kind of internal, like smiling.
Yep.
Like, Mark, see, I am good. They like me.
It was a scene that meant nothing within the context of what we read. So I assume it's going to mean something later.
Yeah.
And then from there, we jump to, God, I hate this scene. We jump back to the parents, the parents in town who are just the most actively trying to give their kid The Shining.
Yeah.
Like, we jump back to the McDougalls. And it's basically, what's his name? Roger? Royer? I think it's Roy, right?
Some
Roy, because I think his full name was Royer.
Something weird like that, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not seen anything I've written, I'll be tweeting some pictures related to this episode. I have the worst handwriting. It's always about 50-50 whether I can read it. So that combined with the memory of a dead goldfish puts us at a really weird place for a show that is all about interconnected conspiracies.
Yeah.
We chose a good line of work here.
Yeah.
But it's basically him
it's seeing what you read when you first encountered them, but going, now what's the dad's reaction to this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
He comes home, sees the kid. I think he does a little bit of dicking off, and then comes home and sees the kid. Mm-hmm. And when he comes home, sees the
thinks
kid.
about how shitty his life is.
Oh, yeah. You know, crap, I had to work this. Da-da-da. Gets home, sees the kid, shouts at her, you know, what'd you do? La, la, la. She's giving the same standard routine. He fell off. And this kind of, for a second, you might believe he's about ready to go ape shit on her. Mm-hmm. But then it very immediately turns into like, woman, where's my dinner?
Yeah.
He just kind of immediately, it's as if his mind just went, I can't fix that, so let me go on to another thing I want done.
There's a bit, I can't remember if he thinks it or says it, where he's like, fell off the table. Are you sure? Because, like, he did this and this, and he lists, like, 4 or 5 other abuses. It was like...
You're basically giving the impression he fully knows, but just doesn't have the effort to care. Yeah.
And then that scene ended. I had to read that scene, like, the last couple lines of that over and over till it really clicked what it meant. Because it ends with, like, her... Like, he yells at her to shut the baby up, and then she's like...
Oh, yeah.
She's like, it's done. And he's like, what do you mean? And then she's like, we could tonight. And it was like... And I had to read it over, and I was like, oh, wait, was she on her period, and now they can bang? Is that where that was going?
I guess, yeah.
That's the only thing I could get out of it.
I mean, especially when you're thinking of these people, that's kind of what you're...
That's kind of
completely honest.
I'm done carrying... Nah, that's not even good. Why don't you give me some shiny? I'm done. I'm going to retire. But yeah, then we get another scene that was useless. It was basically Parkins, the sheriff, getting a call back from the FBI. And they're like, hey, here's a bunch of stuff about Ben Mears that everyone already knows.
Yes.
I'm not even going to tell you what it is. It is literally stuff that has been established about Ben. And here is everything that has already been established to the audience, but not to Parkins, about... the 2 new guys.
And by the way, they're prog queer with each other.
Yep.
I mean, quite literally. That is the line. That is the great enlightenment the FBI guy brings to it.
Here's some inside info that's not on the books. I think they're gay. All right.
Well, I've solved the problem. Thank you. That was the missing piece.
Cool. Cool. And I think the only thing of significance in this might be the fact that, like, the sheriff lies to the deputy about who called. Like, we've got a couple bits where he's like kept the deputy out of it because he thinks that he hasn't said why, but he's just like, he's too excitable. I don't want him here. And I don't know. It set Nolly up for something.
Yeah, no, he's gonna do something.
Yeah.
This all had, and this is pretty obvious if we're following from Carrie's structure. It's a pretty good idea that we're getting a lot of filler because this is still part 1.
Yep.
So it's exactly like Carrie.
Yep.
There were so many parts where you're just like, what, huh? And then you get to part 2, and then...
I think part 2 is going to be all the hell breaking loose, and part 3 is going to be them coming back after the prologue. That's my guess.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then from there, we go to Dud. We jump back to the dump. And, you know, the one thing I would have said for Dud up to this point is I don't agree with his slut shaming, but at least it seemed to come from a consistent place. Dud... Sorry, I got ahead of myself. We cut to Dud back in the dump. I think he's lighting fires. I don't remember if it's a fire day.
I think it is because I think he's shooting rats.
Okay.
I think he's actually states that it's like a rather large fire because he's shooting, like, he gets a lot of rats.
Right. And this is our first introduction of Barrow.
It appears to be,
Kurt
yeah.
Barrow.
Yeah.
Because does he introduce? I don't remember if he introduced himself. But
I don't think he doesn't introduce himself as that because actually during their dialogue he keeps asking him who are you?
Right.
And he just like, you don't need to know that. That's basically he's doing that kind of stuff. Guy comes out of the woods. It's him. They they have a little dialogue at first where it's basically a creature dominant. I believe the thing that initiates it is the, what's his name again?
Dud.
Barrow.
Barrow.
He
Or Barlow.
I'm trying to remember how he leads into it. Something about liking.
He likes wolves, but he doesn't like.
I'm trying to remember how it's some sort of lead into about like the night and like potent.
I think he says like he respects rats because they're predators.
Or something about that, or his shooting of rats.
Yeah.
He likes the kind of like the prey hunting element of what he's doing. I think that's what it is. Because then he makes a comment about wolves.
Right.
And their predatory status and likes them. And Dud's response is something about dogs. And the guy's like, no, not dogs. Dogs, they sit at your leg, they whimper, they're just kind of the coward version of wolves.
They treat your cat 7:30 in the morning and wake you up. Sorry, I'm pissed about some stray dogs here. And I'm not saying that I'd follow in Dud's footsteps. I'm saying I'm angry at dogs. I'm not going to kill any dogs. Making that clear.
So once they kind of establish this bond of liking predatory kind of thing, it then slowly turns into, what do you want, Dud? What is it that, gets you going, blah, blah, blah. Do you want? And then this kind of leads into this back and forth where basically he admits that there's a specific woman. I can't remember who it is.
It's the one. It's a student on the bus. I don't remember who it is. It's every time they talk about the kids, they talk about how slutty this one chick is.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever that is. I can find the name in a bit. Like it's the woman. It's the teenager that he was like, and that's that slutty rat. Bam.
Oh,
the
yeah.
last time we saw him.
So
and, there's another mention of like, this scene was actually really well written, creepy as hell, but well written. Because, like, we see Dud's resistance at first. Like, he keeps being like, dump's closed. You got to go.
Oh,
It's been a great talk, but you got to go. Oh, what if I mesmerize you some more? Well, you got to go soon. And there is a bit where he's like, when he's asked where what he wants, where he's kind of like, I don't really need anything. I'm happy.
Oh, yeah, the initial.
Yeah, I got what I want. And then the vampire's like, what about that hump on your back? That's got to be hard to get the chicks with. And he's like, I don't want chicks.
Ah, yes, that's the segue into chicks, yeah.
And he's like, I don't want chicks. He's like, are you sure? What about that slutty teenager on the bus? You want her, don't you?
It basically borderlines on what feels like almost a mind-reading experience. Yep. The guy slowly pulls out of Dud exactly what Dud wants to seduce him.
And this is my previous rant earlier that was totally misplaced. This is what I was annoyed at Dud, where he's like, this is where he loses all consistency. Because up to this point, he was just like, I don't care about sex. It's whatever. I was like, do we get asexual representation? Like, not in a great character, but in 19... No, he's just resigned because he got hunchback.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah, back and forth, straight mesmerizing, seduces him with exactly what he wants, and he's like, yeah, and gets bit. Very clearly gets bit. He just...
Yeah, we get these, like, actually pretty cool imagery of, like, a lake with eyes in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The eyes are a thing. Hence, we could probably assume the mesmerizing ability.
Right. And I think somewhere in here, we get some weird reference to Lord of Flies. I don't remember what scene it was in, but there's, like, an offhand, like, interjection, like, Lord of Flies.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's the second time we've seen that.
Yeah.
Which is, like, there's so many things going on in this book. Or they're all one thing being referred to 1,000 different ways, and I can't tell.
It's got a feeling of like blind preparation. You're being prepped, but you don't know what for because you're just being prepped. Like, here's some info, here's some info. Okay, you'll find out the train of thought in a second.
Because like we know there's vampires,
clearly.
Even if we didn't know going in, we know there's vampires at this point. There might be an evil spirit of a home or a possession. Or maybe Marston is Barlow. Is Marston coming back? There might be an evil Cthulhu god in the Lord of or these might all be referring to the same thing.
Yeah. This might just be like some way to take one dark moment. Because that's a theme they keep doing too. This sort of concentrated darkness. This is just darkness incarnate.
Right.
So the house is bad. It draws bad. It causes bad.
So, I mean, like, is the house a beacon that called to the vampire? I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't really know that. Yeah.
It's just, it feels like a lot, but it just might not.
It has an air of evil predestination, but.
Right. It was a cool scene. I actually really liked it.
Yeah, no, it was pretty legit.
And then we jump to Father Callahan. And we get basically a story, just a fast forward of like, yeah, I'm a drunkard priest. I think he was like talking about how he was working on a manuscript about the town. and that led him down the path of the drink.
Yeah, something along those lines. And of course, it was never going to get done or finished.
Right.
And the usual pondering God stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is he there? Is he not there? Am I doing this out of foolishness? Is that guy doing it? Blah, blah, blah.
And
the standard self-ranting when you're drunk.
Before
when
he
you're
goes
a priest.
into like his like thoughts on confessions at this point, right?
I think so.
Because that's when like we kind of just find out like everyone in the town's terrible. He starts down this train of thought about how like he joined the priesthood because he wanted to stand against evil, and he's like, and I wish that had been like literal. Like this guy's like, I wish evil was just a dragon I could stick a sword in. But evil's like the fact that the McDougalls are beating the shit out of their kid, and I can't do anything about it.
Which seems to actually defeat him, like because it can't be like directed. You can't just be like, I'm the holy dude, you're evil, blah.
Yeah,
it has to be this. Oh. Everyone's kind of awful.
And I gotta say, if you were a Catholic priest in a Maine town written by Stephen King, I feel like this is exactly where you end up because you have to do confession. Like, if everyone is as bad as Stephen King writes small towns, every Catholic priest kills himself. Straight up.
I made this comment earlier off podcast of if you were to take all of his books, plot them on the map, and see how concentrated this is. According to King's universe, the northeast of America is basically where Satan lives. It is literally everywhere is just the worst people ever, all concentrated in smallest town, middle-sized town. It's
Maine.
just Maine.
I have a theory that Stephen King actually hates Maine and is slowly changing like the general consciousness of Maine. Like, oh yeah, Maine. Isn't that where Pennywise was written? Like, isn't that where the Dreamcatcher stuff happened? Like, he's writing all these horrible, horrible people into Maine. Like, you're being taught everyone in Maine is terrible.
Basically.
At their core.
Basically.
There's like 6 good people per town. Most of them are going to die. The rest are just fundamentally bad people. Stephen King has been writing a decades-long smear campaign against Maine. That is my official position. But yeah, not much more there. He thinks about how terrible things are, and he drinks some more.
Yeah.
And then we get our last chapter, which is Matt. Not Matt 1, not Matt 2. I think he played his hand. We're not going to get another chapter from Matt's perspective.
No.
Nothing happens till the end. Like, yes, things happen, but it's basically Matt and Ben at the school. It's basically just like, hey, here's some banter about kids.
Yeah, he mentions that he likes the way Ben dressed because he didn't look like a hobo or take it too long. Basically, again. And so he looked professional. And there's
that weird tangent about like writers who make it or like, oh, I'm going to dress as weird as I can to show I stuck it to the man.
Or who dress too up to look classier as if they've made it. And it looks ridiculous as well. Yeah. And then he that's not very much, but he invites him over to dinner. That's where the real, like, anything occurs.
Matt has some really specific, very strongly held opinions.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say on that.
So I think it starts with Ben showing up, showing up to the house, doubting he's at the right house. Because it's
rock music.
Blaring rock music out there. He bangs on the door, eventually gets attention, gets called in, turns the music down. Ben walks in, sort of assesses the place. Goes, I like Matt.
He's a serious man.
I like everything about him. Just looks legit.
Yep. Time to spill the book beans.
Basically, they eat spaghetti in the kitchen. Ben says it's amazing. They have to eat in the kitchen because Matt sold his table for $200 and never bought
antique dealer.
And never which is even funnier because he probably mark it up.
Yeah,
lie about it. But and hasn't bought a new one. They click it off. Then they go into the living room, and then there's the book stuff you were getting into, where he actually gets into... Preceding this a bit, Matt actually tells him fairly early, you can't see the Marston house from here, as if to just point it out.
Yeah, like, hey, sorry, bro, I want to stare at it too. I know what it does downstairs. We're going to have to cool it for the night. Let's talk about your book. Oh, it's about the Marston house? I'm getting half-mast. It's, okay, reading... Ben's description of his book was like reading The Outsider's blurb. When the body of a violated child is discovered.
Oh, yeah.
It's straight up.
His book is basically King who's going to shock you with some absurd thing, like a kid being violated.
He says, like, I want to follow a sex crime.
Yeah.
I don't remember if he explicitly says a child, but
I think
this
but
is
maybe
all
not.
he's researching, so it's implied at least. I want to follow a sex crime and tell all the gory details, shock the readers with how far I'm willing to go, and just follow it through to its conclusion. And then, part 2, section 2, that kid's going to develop The Shining. But yeah, this is...
not quite, but that was 90% what he actually says.
This bit I promised I was going to edit out, but I definitely didn't when I was going about this in the bar, that I thought this conversation was here. Yeah, he describes this to Matt as it's not a passion project, which is obviously a lie. He's like, I just want to make some money.
He specifically states, art's a good idea and all, and to aim for it and everything, but I'm just doing this for cash. Right. I need a book to make it so that I can be comfortable again.
I don't know what the sales on Carrie were when this was being written, but if the timing on that works out, this feels like Stephen King just being like, look, I proved it. If you want to write a book that makes a lot of money, just write my books. I did it. I don't know. It felt very self-congratulatory.
It is very weird that the book being
staring at the Marston house.
Yeah, the description of the book and what he planned to write and all of that stuff, and the fact that Stephen King's known to spook himself, which is what he inspires himself with, and this man's deliberately spooking him. It's Stephen King. Stephen King is describing to Robin Williams what he wrote, what he's writing.
I gotta say, write what you know.
Yeah, I mean,
he did it.
Very direct, and tells you.
I mean, not much more happens there.
Really. It's back forth.
They leave.
Don't tell people. People will think you're weird. Da da da.
Right.
Yeah.
And trying to speed through this because we have a lot of stuff to talk about once we get the description. We get Matt. Whoa, lost the name there. We get Matt going to the bar. Right? Is this?
Yeah, because he states that he had a class function when Ben's like, I need to go see Susan. He's like, oh, I have a class function. That's fine. Right. And then he goes, that's full of shit. I'm actually going to the bar.
Yeah. So he goes to the bar. I think this is when we get the mention of Floyd Tibbets is all pissed off because he's had 3 conversations with Sue and none of them have gone well.
Yeah.
So at least in the background, we're finding out that, like, at least Sue's
literally and always in the background.
Yeah.
We keep getting Tibbets' info by just a magical blurb on the page telling you, look over there in the bar. Look at Tibbets. Here's what he's thinking.
Right.
And then you move.
Yeah, the last time we saw Tibbets, I think, was a guy being like, he's had a shitty day. Not going to tell him Sue's hanging out with that new guy. But at least we get confirmation. Floyd knows. He's not.
It's also amusing that Ben just keeps walking into this bar and Tibbets.
Yep. And then we get, this is where
I feel like there's going to be a holdup in this bar, like zombie style or something.
I think so.
This constantly being a center spot of certain people. I almost feel like this bar might be pointing out who might be the dudes who. Because that would be him, Matt.
We'll talk about the
Tibbets. Yeah.
Okay, but he then runs into
Weasel.
Mike. Does he run into Weasel again?
No, I was thinking of people who are always at that bar.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, I think Weasel's going to be there pretty far.
I don't think he runs into Weasel, but I think he says he sees him just nursing a beer somewhere.
Yeah, but the core of this is with him and Mike.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of him reminiscing about how he taught Mike.
Yeah.
Every single person he sees, he's like, I taught them then, and I taught their grandfather then, and I taught their great-great-grandfather, who was Tutankhamun, back in... this guy just taught everyone in town.
Yeah, apparently.
But Mike looks terrible.
Pale, sickly.
Matt immediately thinks he's on drugs.
Yeah,
like, you on goofballs, nib knobs? What? Like, are you on them gobstoppers? I don't know, drugs.
I have to admit that actually, to bring up a point, was it the last podcast we made this? Did we make this in the podcast or outside of it when we were confused about the use of the word dope?
I don't think we talked about it on here, but yeah.
But this moment right here fully confuses this user because we had I think this was off podcast. We had discussed what the word when someone says dope, what do they mean?
Right.
Often today, no one's not jumping to marijuana. You're jumping to harder drugs.
Heroin.
Yeah, specifically heroin.
Yeah.
Back then, I think you asked around.
Yeah,
just to see what
I
people.
Asked my parents.
Yeah,
I asked like people, like my brothers who were like a couple years in high school above. Everyone was like pot.
So we get to this moment in the book where he sits down, like he says, are you on drugs? And what he says is, no, I'm not on dope, but I did grass. I'm not. He makes this weird distinction where he suggests there's like a harder marijuana.
He does say hard dope.
Yeah, that's what I'm confused.
Yeah.
So, but it's like he's like, no, I didn't do hard dope. I did grass, and I'm just like, okay, now what does dope mean?
I'm thinking maybe dope has always been kind of a general term.
Drugs,
but what it refers to most frequently has changed because he says hard dope.
Yeah,
and then specifies I smoked grass before. I haven't in months.
Yeah. But basically, yeah, no, I didn't do drugs, and he's like, well, then, dude, what's going on with you? And then this is where we get it takes a bit of coaxing to get out of him, but what we just talked about earlier, basically that happens. He blacks out and doesn't recall diddly squat.
Yeah, he says that he fell asleep. Yeah. He woke up when the sun was starting to shine, and he moved into the woods because he was afraid to get a sunburn. He points out that the grave was filled in.
Yeah, it was perfectly done. The grass was on there, everything.
He thinks he's sick. He's talking about how sick he is.
He thinks that even Royal or whatever came by later and finished it, possibly.
Yeah, or he finished it and doesn't remember.
Yeah, and then he goes on to talk about how basically he sleeps during the day and is up at night.
Yep.
Quite literally. Every time it turns day, he just passes out and does not get up until the sun's down.
Yep. He can't eat anything.
Nope.
He's
Can't
got
eat.
A beer in front of him.
Can't drink it.
Every time he tries to take a sip, he just can't, and he throws up when he does.
Yep.
And
all the basic
the whole thing
signs.
is set up to be like, hey, you're a vampire now.
Yeah. It's all the signs.
And then he starts talking about how he had a dream where someone came to his window and he let them in.
And Matt's like, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? And I have no idea.
And yeah, Mike's even like, it was a dream. And he's like, no, but in the dream, who was it? That's what I'm interested in. Oh. And basically Mike's like, I'm sorry, not Mike. Matt. Basically, it boils down to Matt being like, Mike, you look like shit. Come to my house. Sleep in my house. We're going to the doctor tomorrow. And then we jump there, and this
was a pretty decent scene.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
pretty, like it.
That's part of the chunk we read.
Yeah. So basically, he takes him home, sets him to bed, says, "You need anything, literally anything, call for me. You have a bad dream, call for me. Just anything you need."
He
dude.
makes a point to check that the window's latched and jiggles it.
Yeah.
Make sure it can't be popped
because the
open.
whole 9 yards. He just let him sleep. Need anything? Da da da.
He notices bite.
Yeah, that's
scratches.
it. Yeah,
They call it scratches on his neck.
And actually,
that threw me for a bit because Danny didn't have them. And I was like, we know Danny's a vampire. Is it different? Because I was certain Mike was a vampire at this point.
Yeah, I guess that is weird. Maybe there's something about, because remember, like, if he's playing the Dracula thing, there's always a unique property to virgins. The kid would be a virgin, so there might be some different way.
Mike isn't going to be a vampire. I think he's just being.
I think he's a thrall.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's.
I think he's just being, because especially what's happening here. Yeah, so he sees the marks. Mike goes, "Oh, I didn't even know I had those." And it kind of pitters off. They don't go too much with it.
It is worth pointing out that after Mike starts opening up, from that point on, he's completely compliant. Matt is like, I asked him that, he immediately did it. Like, he just, anything Matt asks, he just agrees to. It's something I noticed. I didn't kind of notice it in retrospect. When we started talking about the thrall thing. I don't know if it was just because he's just decided to fully trust, or if there's something more there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just want to point it out.
Yeah.
But we get from there, like, Matt's being like, I can't sleep. I should have called Ben. God, Ben. And there's another.
His butt buddy in literature.
He's like, I should have called Ben. I would have if he hadn't been with Sue. I can just barely see the tip of the tallest tree on the Marston estate. They're just drift compatibility outcasts. Yeah. If I had to choose anyone to save us from, I don't know, a like kaiju Lord of Flies, it'd be these two.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's King, so they probably have powers because they writers are involved in literature.
I mean, if we could go back in time and like punch them when they were kids a lot, unstoppable. But he goes through like a couple pages of like, I'm not going to say the word vampires. I'm just going to say everything I can think of related to vampires.
Bram Stoker, beasts, monsters.
Yup. And there's one bit I want to read. He's standing there in bed freaking out. Nothing's actually happened at this point. No. He's just freaking himself out. But it was worse than that. He was dead scared. His mind ran over the old protections for an unmentionable disease. I love that phrase. But garlic, holy water, and a wafer and water, crucifix, rose, running water. Rose isn't one I'm familiar with.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then he's like, but I don't have any of that. I'm a non-practicing Methodist. I might have a Bible.
That's actually a very interesting point he makes, because you could dial that all the way back to Bram Stoker's Dracula itself, because he says he's a non-practicing Methodist, but he referenced several Catholic-only things there, because traditionally you beat a vampire by Catholicism, but Bram Stoker was an apostate. And so when he wrote Bram Stoker's Dracula, he added all the Catholic tools into Bram Stoker's Dracula, but got rid of all of their significance to why they worked. Because he was an apostate. He wanted to remove the... So it's interesting to see that King adds that exact element almost weirdly back in by going like, yeah, okay, I'm a Protestant and an unpracticing one. I have none of this stuff.
Yep. And then we get the only religious object in the house was, and then a dash, and then we hear Mike saying, yes, come in.
And that's the sort of
and that's the point at which
when he
that's
shits his
like,
pants.
Today I fucked up by. Yeah. And I loved that. It was so spooky. It was actually really spooky.
No, it really is.
good.
Yeah, if you actually read it, it was this slow, creepy. It portrayed the fear of acknowledging something supernatural being there, and then going, well, if I acknowledge that, I can't do anything about it. This is terrible.
Right. Like, he goes through, like, he has this brief, like, I should go grab the Bible and run and hold it aloft and save him.
Our Father,
but I'm an old, terrified man.
Yeah.
I can't.
No, that's a thing he actually does keep repeating. He talks about all the things he thinks he should be thinking out to resolve this problem, and then immediately he goes, no, I'm scared shitless.
Yep.
This ain't happening.
And then the very last lines of this chapter and section. And in the awful heavy silence of the house, as he sat impotently on his bed with his face in his hands, he heard the high, sweet, evil laugh of a child, and then the sucking sounds. It was really good. And then on the next page, you see the Emperor of Ice Cream.
So we already got the feeding kid now running around.
Yep.
Yeah, oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
Kid made him a thrall, and then
I don't have much interconnectivity to other book stuff yet. I'm gonna save it. Going into part 2, I think this is where hell's gonna start breaking loose.
oh yeah.
So what we did is it's a little wild because it's hard to know who is an important character with how many we've been introduced to, but I've got what we've kind of guessed are the most important characters on a board, and we're gonna do a little competition between Alex and I before we start into part 2. What we think is the most important characters here. And we went through with a Sharpie. I'm going to put a picture of this board in the show notes. And we've guessed whether they end up at the end of the book dead, or if they went to the vampire side in some way, or if they survive.
I think we had, was it points?
Yeah.
Dead 1, Vamp 2, Survive 3.
Right. I felt it feels like the right
Yeah,
mix,
you're going to
so-
be, and in the case of things like vampire then dies, the higher score goes.
Right.
So vampire is 2 points. So death, if you pick vamp, you do not put dead on them. It doesn't really matter.
Right. So yeah, we'll shoot out a picture of that. And at the end of this, I'm still working on the trophy. We're going to have a trophy. I believe this time we're going with
The serious man.
the serious man.
The serious
trophy.
man trophy.
So
We'll see who's more serious at the
once
end.
I have that made, I'll tweet out a picture of that, and I'll put it in whatever the show notes of. I'll tell you in the show when that's made. We'll put a picture in the show notes. But God, we ran long on this one, so not a huge amount of time here at the end. But overall thoughts on this chunk?
It's a setup.
Yep, there's some good
I
scenes.
didn't even say that much this one, but yeah, it's some neat scenes and then some setup. But I mean, vampire kid coming through the window, sapping on a dude.
Yep,
It's a pretty good lead up to whatever's happening next.
Yep, we got to have not weird sex, or the least weird sex we've seen so far, which is super cool.
It'd only have to come after killing a couple of kids.
I do have to say, for me, it was a lot more fun to read than talk about this time.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of it was very much like you could breeze through.
Yeah, and
very
then you got to
tone
actually enjoy
establishing.
the cool scenes. Because
Yep.
obviously, when we describe when we say something's cool, it doesn't sound that good from us.
Yeah, I mean, a Cliff Notes version. Just read like the last bit of chapter 5, or sorry, of chapter 7. Just read that last chunk. That's all you need.
That's the spookiest part.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
You just want the spookiest version.
Yeah.
The Spook Notes version.
Now that needs to exist.
Yes. Well, I guess until next time.
Oh yeah, what are we reading? What is the actual chapters?
yes.
We need to.
There we go. We're going to be doing 8 and 9.
Yeah.
Next 2 chapters of Part 2, The Emperor of Ice Cream. Yeah, I guess.
This might be another name for Lord of the Flies or something.
Maybe.
Emperor of Ice Cream, yeah.
I guess until then, I'm Dud the Rat Killer. And you've read the book and signed it in blood to the Lord of Flies?
Yeah.
Hole in the Wall Book Club is a part of the Icynewyear Productions Network, and produced and edited by Anthony Sheets. The music in this episode is Supernatural Radio by Kevin MacLeod. There'll be a link to his license and website in the show notes. If you want to get a hold of us, tweet us at Icynewyear, or send an email to icynewyear@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to tell a friend, or leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice. Word of mouth and 5-star reviews really help us get out in front of more people, and let us expand and do more things. More information on the show can be found on icynewyear.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.